Yeah, hi all. Tracy, looks like you've got a one-on-one here, which is
Oh, hello.
a freebie. All good. Obviously, it's recorded, but yeah, if you've got any questions throughout, then it's down to you, to be honest, I think. So no
Oh,
pressure.
okay. I have to think something.
There might be other people join as we go along, but
Okay.
yeah. So this session is going to be all about protein intake, essentially, which is good. What I love about protein intake is basically once you get this right, it looks pretty similar every day. So it's not some things in nutrition change depending on the context, but this is good. And then once you get it, you just copy and paste and get the most out of your training, essentially. It's also good just to I think people put a lot of emphasis on protein, and it is super important. But to clear, I guess, clear the air a little bit, maybe some of the myths, and to actually give you some proper guidance as to what you need, rather than you hear this, that, and everything about protein. And they even fortify protein bagels and things like that. So, do we even need protein bagels? That's the question. The answer is obviously no. But first of all, just making sure there's no one else wanted to come in. Don't think there is. We've got something called the three T's of protein, and Tracy, sadly, it comes down to you to guess what the three T's of protein are.
Oh,
You've got any
God. Oh, what have I done? I think I've hit my mute button. No, I haven't. Am I still there?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, um, three T's. Was it timing? Things like that? Is that what you're
Timing is definitely one. Yeah, smash that. Good.
Um,
Okay.
type?
Type.
Type of
Good. Yeah.
protein?
Yeah.
What would be the third one?
You get all
Your
three correct.
training? Down to your training? Would that,
Oh, not quite. No.
uh, um, what's the last one? Don't know.
Total. So,
The
yeah.
what?
Total.
Total. Oh,
Total
yeah,
amounts
that
of
makes
protein.
sense. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But you smashed first two. Good. So,
Two out of three.
people don't get that very easily, actually. So
Oh,
that's
okay. Well, that's
we've
something then.
got total timing and type. Okay. And basically what we're trying to do is if we tick all three off or consider all three aspects, we will have our protein intake absolutely like maximized basically. So we're going to go through them. And number one, the most important one is your total amount of protein. So this is definitely, I guess, the
Mm,
strongest one, the highest priority, where if we get this right, we're probably maximizing the majority of our sort of protein muscle turnover and all those aspects that we're trying to achieve. So, how much do you need each day? Do you want to have a guess?
depends on your weight, your training,
Yeah,
all those
good.
things.
Have you heard any
So,
number?
and your age. Obviously, the older you are, you might need a bit more. Is that true still? So,
I'd actually say if you're older, you probably need a little bit more
mm,
due to what we call muscle sarcopenia, where you lose muscle mass
yeah.
as you. Um, yeah, age does factor in, but it does come down to body
Um,
primarily. Have
and
you heard
obviously,
any
if you're
numbers?
trying to train for obviously building muscle, or whether you're trying to lose, obviously, if you're trying to cut more protein,
Yeah, yeah. If we're in a significant calorie deficit,
yeah.
then the risk of muscle loss is a lot higher. So, yeah, we tend to bump protein up there to offset that and try and retain as much muscle as we can. So that's right. Have you heard any numbers in your head? Do you know any figures?
So we were taught, I just did my level 4, I think it was anywhere between 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram of body weight for general public, obviously
Mhm.
higher for people resistance training and athletes. So anything from sort of 1.2 upwards, maybe to 2.5 even or
Yeah,
above.
nice. So pretty much bang on there. I the like general recommendations, general population, I think are a bit outdated personally. I think having 0.8 grams
Yeah,
gram for someone is minimal. That's almost like
yeah,
for
it's
some
quite
people who
low.
want a chicken breast. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'd for optimal results, I'd always be pushing people towards a higher amount, and
Mhm.
particularly towards this 1.6 gram marker. So that is basically where they found there's a bit of a plateau at that point. So having 2 grams per kilogram does have very minor improvements over the 1.6, but you get most of the gains up to the 1.6 mark. So that would be like the baseline target that I'd set for most people. And then, yeah,
Mhm.
dependent, then we might be going higher. So, yeah, if we are in a significant calorie deficit, we might go for over 2.4 kind of grams
Yeah.
per body. If we're injured, that's another time that we might have a really big
Yeah.
Again, the sort of aging population, we might push up a little bit higher because they're anabolic resistance as well. So there's a few, occasions that might be. And obviously there's an example there of a 70-kilo athlete that could be anywhere between 112 to 182 grams, which is great. And then just show you this graph. Obviously, this is from a research paper, but basically you can see on there that at that 1.6 or just over that 1.6 mark, you kind of plateau a little bit with essentially stimulation of sort of muscle protein synthesis, or the effect that has on your fat-free mass, so your muscle development. So it doesn't mean that everyone has to aim for just 2. I think sometimes 2 grams per kilogram is a bit much for some people. So 1.6 seems a lot more reasonable for people that aren't necessarily into knowing how much protein they're having or haven't had a high protein diet. That's definitely like a nice introductory place to start. But as we can see from that 0.8 up to the 1.6, there's quite a nice trend line up, so it's showing that you get greater turnover of sort of muscle and greater muscle development up to that 1.6 gram mark. But after that, as I say, it's more context dependent. That's good. Do you know? Oh dear, you've probably seen that. Okay, gonna go into it. How much you need
Yeah.
serving? So if we break it down, obviously we don't want to be having all of it in one hit. That'd be quite impressive to be a big kilo T-bone steak, or a big tomahawk or something might get you there. But typically, if we break that down, we'd want around 0.4 to 0.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. Now, again, a bit of context here. If you've done like a big full body workout, or maybe you've, I don't know, spent all day on the bike or something, then we probably want higher. So it's, again, context dependent. This is more your general, let's just say we're having a breakfast and lunch on a general working day. We probably want to be aiming for between 0.4 to 0.5 grams. You can get a good stimulus still from like 0.3, but it might just be a little bit better to bump that up to about 0.4. So basically what that looks like, again, if you're a 70 kg athlete, so you can work this all out depending on your body weight, which is the nicest thing, is around 28 to 35 grams of protein. Okay, so I call that like a protein hit, and we want to be getting multiple of those throughout the day. Do you know how many you should be targeting per day? How many servings of protein?
What, as in, does it depend on how many meals you have? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so how many meals, or how many meals and snacks of protein base do you think you need per day to maximize?
Well, I would include protein with all main meals. So if you're having 3 main meals, I would have protein in every meal.
Yep. Is there an occasion where that wouldn't be enough?
If obviously athletes, obviously if you're training more or multiple times a day, then yes, anywhere up to 4 to 5.
Yeah. So what I'll teach you here is we'll talk more about, or actually it's coming on, and I thought
Is it more about your total amount that you have in the day rather than?
So there has been some research that came out, I think it was last year actually, where they looked at the effect of having a big dose of protein, maybe like twice a day, as compared to like 4 or 5 times per day. And basically, I think what they said is it doesn't really matter that much, but that goes against quite typical recommendations. So basically, when I was taught, and all my recommendations have always been to kind of dose it throughout the day. And I'll tell you why in a minute, because there's a bit of sort of science behind it. This was the first paper that really went, do you know what? It's not as important. It's more important that you reach that total amount. So yeah, that 150 grams, for example. And if you achieve that in just 2 meals, then they showed that still has a similar effect than if you split that up into 4 or 5 servings. So the jury
Is it still only these days? Is it like every 3 to 4 hours for your muscle protein synthesis?
That's still my recommendation.
Yeah.
Because that's where the majority of the kind of science has been, and that's typical fundamentals of it. But as I say, there might be some changes in the future years as to how that looks. But that's the total element. The amount we're having per day is definitely the #1 priority that we want to aim for. So yeah, protein, for those who might be watching this back, is how much is 1 hit of protein? Well, you kind of saw on the last page that was that kind of 30 to 40 or 25 to 38, I think it was, maybe, grams per serving. For those who don't know what that looks like, kind of looks like this. A nice easy visual way of doing it is to think about your fists. So like it's relative to your body weight, but a fist size serving of protein will typically be enough to guarantee you're getting enough protein in that meal or snack. So a salmon fillet, a chicken breast, 3-4 eggs, a really good portion of high protein yogurt, whether that's skyr yogurt, Greek yogurt, protein powder, beef mince, milk, anything like that. So yeah, it all does depend on the source, but typically that's a little guidance there as to how much protein you need in one meal or snack to make that really effective for you. Now I kind of alluded a little bit there to how often we should be eating. We would call that the timing aspect. Basically, we want to primarily be in a state of muscle protein synthesis. So you might have heard myself talking about that. You might have seen it elsewhere. And that is essentially the rebuilding of muscle and the building of muscle. So we want to be in a state of synthesis, but naturally, day to day, we're also going in these states of muscle protein breakdown. We can't stop that. That does happen, but we want to primarily be in the synthesis. We want to be building. We don't want to be breaking muscle down. Okay. So think of it as like Lego bricks in that the more protein we can get into diet and drip that into the day, we're essentially building more Lego bricks onto your biceps, your triceps, whatever that might be. Okay. And if we can avoid losing the muscle from the breakdown aspect, okay, then we're going to obviously be in a net muscle surplus, and that's going to be a positive thing from a muscle development point of view and a strength point of view and a muscle size point of view as well. Okay. So yeah, really important. As I say, I think this is just an elongated animation from myself that we want to stay more in that synthesis state. Okay. So how do we avoid muscle protein breakdown? But what you'll see on this graph here is that, as I say, we naturally go into these states of muscle protein breakdown. So if you look at the red line there, that is times when we go into this breakdown, and typically that is when we have long gaps between meals. Okay, so say if we went from lunchtime till I don't know, dinner, that's quite a long time, that might be 7-8 hours potentially, without any protein coming in, we'd probably end up in a state of muscle protein breakdown there. Okay. But what you can see here is that when we consume some protein, so if you have a look at the 40-gram, I don't think my mouse is working on here actually, but the 40-gram feed there at 6:30, you can see that there's a massive increase in muscle protein synthesis straight away after that. Okay, and that's what we're trying to achieve there and stay in that state. So my dog. So this is why when I say we want to distribute this out across the day, it's because every time we have this bump of protein, we go into the state of synthesis. Okay, and we want them to be within those 3-4 hour windows, because that's how we stay in the synthesis rather than avoiding going into that breakdown. Okay. But there's one area there in the day which we will struggle to control because essentially we're sleeping. And that is like the overnight period. So we will be in a state of muscle protein breakdown whilst we're sleeping. We'll come into this in a moment, but there is something that you could potentially do to overcome that. So hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, basically what we want to look at doing is having protein every sort of 3 to 4 hours to constantly be in a state of synthesis or as much as possible. Okay, and avoiding being in that breakdown. Is that similar to what you've learned or heard before?
Yeah, it is. At the minute, I'm going trying to sort out some gut issues. I've just been to see a dietitian who helps me. And I've been sort of spacing my meals out a little bit longer for that reason. So I'm roughly going from like 7 o'clock in the morning and then probably not having my lunch till 12 and then eating again at 5. Just because it's helped me in that respect. But is that okay, or do you think I'm kind of...
I think what I'd always say is everyone's your own experiment, and whatever works best for you is best for you. Like, this is just general guidance. You kind of take the information, see if you can apply it to your own lifestyle at all. But if not, if the context doesn't allow, then yeah, you kind of work out what's best for you there. So maybe that's where you lean into that new research where it's saying the total amount of protein is probably the priority. If we're getting the right amount of protein in across the whole day, kind of irrelevant a little bit as to how often that maybe comes in to do what's right for you. But I think for people who are watching, what I tend to see with athletes and general population I work with is breakfast tends to be really, really low in protein intake because people tend to be in a bit of a rush. They probably haven't prepped anything. Lunch will have a moderate amount, but dinner will have a big amount typically. So I just encourage people to try and spread that out a little bit better across the day. So can we make sure we get some protein in at breakfast, whether that is yogurt, whey protein, eggs, anything like that. And then maybe a little bit more at lunch, and just try and spread it out a little bit better, typically. Good. Can you hear those dogs?
No,
Oh, good. Because these dogs are barking. Well, that's great.
it's not
Good.
me mine.
So yeah, next thing to consider is this element of protein pulsing. So that's kind of what when I'm talking about how can we drip feed protein into the body is by doing this. So I mean, this is quite hard to achieve, but how can we go breakfast, lunch, afternoon, dinner, and pre-bed potentially? But this is pretty challenging. So we might just look at having 4 of these if we can. And again, for you, Tracy, obviously maybe this doesn't align with your timing aspects, but can we get some protein in at breakfast and make sure we get it at lunch? I always recommend something in the afternoon, primarily because that can be a long gap. Again, some people might go from midday till 7, 8 p.m., which is obviously 7, 8 hours. We want to be maybe having something at 3.5 hours there to plug that gap a little bit. And then what I introduced earlier is this pre-bed opportunity. So as I say, we go into a state of breakdown typically when we sleep. The way to overcome that is we can have like an overnight based protein, okay, which basically the casein or casein style type of protein will support you with that. And it's a slow release, so it takes longer to break down in the gut and to digest and to get to the muscles. So when we sleep for 6, 7, 8 hours, we are gradually releasing sort of protein, at least for that first 3, 4 hours, as opposed to if we don't have anything, then yeah, we've got nothing coming into the body really. So I mean, it doesn't have to be a powder. Casein protein powder is an option, and you see that around a lot. But you've also got things like milk and dairy, or you could just add maybe a bit of whey protein, some Greek yogurt before bed. And when I say before bed, I mean maybe like an hour before bed. It hasn't got to be immediately. But also weigh up whether it impacts your sleep negatively, because some people might struggle to sleep with that, and if it does, probably not worth it. So yeah, anyone who's looking to really maximize their muscle development and kind of get everything they deserve from their training, a pre-bed feed or pre-bed protein hit would definitely be something I'd be aiming for. Good. So is there any time when this would look different, all this protein, like these timing targets?
Supposed to depend on timings with athletes, depending on if they've got races, etc., things like that.
Yeah,
Competitions.
Yeah, so if we're carb loading ahead of a Ironman, for example, we don't need to focus so much on protein. If we're about to go play a football game, a rugby game, anything like that, again, the priority shifts away from sort of protein and more to carbohydrate. We don't want to be digesting lots of red meat or even protein when we're about to go perform, because in the moment, protein doesn't support performance. Okay, it's more of a training support away from those key moments. So recognizing that your protein intake will probably drop around those key performance moments, and bringing that down as well. But apart from that, typically day to day, the protein intake, if you get that distribution right across the day and we get the amounts right, will look pretty similar, which is what I said at the start. I really like it. So you can rinse and repeat. Good. How else do we get muscle growth? Just one thing, there's more from an education point of view rather than you're all doing this already, but essentially training is actually the fundamental part of your muscle protein synthesis. So you could eat like all the protein in the world, but if you don't train, you won't actually put on muscle, which I know when you think about it, it doesn't sound groundbreaking, but some people do think that happens, which is quite baffling. The jockeys that I work with, they think they're just bodybuilders if they eat one chicken breast. But no, you have to get the stimulus first, which we gain from training. And then what nutrition does, and the best way to describe it is it amplifies those effects. So you're all doing the hard work by going to the gym and engaging with a strength and conditioning program. If we get the nutrition right to support that, we can maximize every opportunity and amplify all those results that we've actually already done the work for. So if you get that right, you can make a big difference there actually. Get them both right and you'll be absolutely flying. Good. And then the final T is type. So what we mean here is, in essence, what type of protein. So you've got obviously like your vegan, plant-based options versus your typical whole meat options. Okay. Now, whole meat. So yeah, meat products are called complete proteins essentially, and what that means is they've got all the amino acid profiles within there, whereas a lot of the plant-based options only have a limited amino acid profile. So basically, if you break down the proteins, they break down into the amino acids, and then they again get used to rebuild the muscle. So yeah, if you take a chicken breast or a salmon fillet, they're always complete proteins. So they're very effective essentially at stimulating muscle growth. And they always tend to have a very high leucine content. Okay, so your leucine is like your trigger amino acid, which is probably like the most important one. And if you've got enough of that, then again, it's going to trigger a lot more muscle protein synthesis. Whereas if you've got low leucine content foods, then you're going to have to eat a bit more of it. Okay. And what we tend to find here, and what you'll see on the screen, is the leucine content of a lot of plant-based options tends to be a lot lower than the kind of meat and dairy and fish options as well. Okay, so you see on there that you've got like hemp, oats, rice, pea, soy, lentil, quinoa, all pretty low there. Okay, so what that means is that we have to eat more of them. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily poor sources. It just means that we have to be smart with how much we're having, and portion is really important. So if you look on the screen there, you'll see that the amount of calories needed to hit 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine, which is like this threshold from quinoa, is 1,100 calories, which is, I mean, I'd be amazed if anyone could eat that much quinoa. And that equals 42 grams of protein. So it really annoys me actually when people put like high protein recipes out and it's got quinoa in it, and I'm like, it's not high protein. Similar to peanut butter as well, which is just not high protein. So consider it if we are a plant-based athlete or yeah, vegetarian, vegan, then I would always be pushing you towards soya-based, so like tofu or soy alternatives, corn, so that mycoprotein, very good, and that has like a really good protein content, and beans as well. And then another option there is almost like pairing your protein options to make sure we get a complete amino acid profile. So you'll get, say, if you have a bean and corn or bean and tofu dish or bean and lentil dish, you will take the amino acids from the beans, the amino acids from the lentils, put them together, and you've probably got close to a complete amino acid profile there. So probably better from a protein stimulation point of view. Okay, good. And then just a note on bulking, because I thought this would be appropriate, is, yeah, do we need to be smashing Ben and Jerry's? That's the question coming up. But first of all, if you just look at the table, basically gaining body muscle, fat-free muscle, and yeah, skeletal muscle is really challenging. Basically, it takes a lot longer than people think. And again, another sort of bugbear of mine, I don't criticize them, but when people go, oh, I've gained, I don't know, 2 pounds in a week, and it's all muscle, I can guarantee you it's not all muscle. It takes a very long time unless you've never stepped in the gym before. So yeah, you'll see there's different levels. As we're new to the gym, we will be able to gain, yeah, quite a bit of body weight through muscle development quite quickly. But as we have more years of exposure to the gym and training, it slows down pretty significantly. Okay, so I mean, if you look there, the advanced training level, you might be able to gain 0.4 to 0.8 pounds. So what's that? Like 200 grams to 400 grams muscle per month. So not a lot. And that's if you absolutely maximize everything. Okay. So reality is most people probably aren't. And genetics plays an absolute huge part of this as well. So look, it's challenging. We obviously want to do as much as we can. Some people will respond to training a lot better than others. But when it comes to how much more calories you need, do you have an idea about how much more you actually want to be getting in?
Not a lot, I don't think. I mean, obviously, if you want to minimize fat gain and then think about obviously not being a cut for as long, so I would not go much above maintenance, maybe 5-10% above.
Yeah, pretty good to be fair. Ryan chucked in there 500, 200, 500. Yeah, like generally what we want to do is just ensure that we're not in an energy deficit. So we're reducing that risk of muscle protein breakdown. Therefore, just a very slight surplus there is going to support that. As you said, like if we end up eating 1,000 calories more, that's primarily going to be used to deposit fat, which isn't going to benefit anyone. So yeah, 200, 300, maybe 400 calories for each individual in a surplus, which isn't really a lot when you compare to the sort of bro science where people try and smash as much food as possible and hit 4 or 5,000 calories. So yeah, in some ways it's quite nice to know you don't have to eat quite as much. As I say, all we're trying to do is just avoid having any energy deficits and just maximizing the amount of energy available to develop muscle, but it doesn't need to be tons.
No, I mean, you can probably still make some gain. Would you say like just being at maintenance calories?
For most people, yeah, and then well, focusing on the three T's. So what we just covered there
Mm,
is like, are they actually doing that? If they're not doing that,
yeah.
relevant to even consider the amount of calories that they're having. And yeah, a lot of athletes will probably at some point in the week will be in a calorie deficit, and just coming up to that energy maintenance, it will be a positive for them. So yeah, you're 100% right. Um, Good. And then I think I'm swear I've touched upon this in the supplement workshop potentially, but too much of a good thing. So very strong antioxidants such as vitamin C in like really concentrated doses, which I mean, getting 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C from food alone is quite challenging. Basically, it can down regulate like the muscle building pathway signaling system. So you're almost giving the body too much of a good thing. You're letting it recover too effectively with something external. Whereas when we're trying to build muscle, what you're trying to stimulate is the body to develop and adapt itself, and to do that, that's how it builds muscle essentially. So my message here is if anyone's taking a vitamin C tablet daily, you don't need it. Um, you can save yourself a bit of money. You can take them when you're ill, but you don't need them daily. Okay, you can definitely get vitamin C, plenty of it from your diet alone, but the really highly concentrated, like 1,000 milligram dosages, could actually be potentially interrupting a little bit of your muscle building pathway, which is in essence dampening down the response you'd get from the training, which seems silly, really. And then just a quick note on, I guess, a really common question that I get is, oh, do I need to be having a protein shake straight away after training or anything? Again, there's so much context needed here about how long was the session, what you're doing tomorrow, yeah, etc. What are we eating going into that session? But my general rule is if you're eating your main meal within 60 minutes, definitely don't need to be having a protein shake or anything. If we are not going to be eating a main meal for a while, then we might want to be having something that's snack based or a protein shake there just to stimulate that muscle protein synthesis again. So if we think of those 3 or 4 hour windows, basically if the training falls in the middle of one and we're going to be a few hours away from our next stimulation of muscle protein synthesis through protein intake, then we might want to get one in quite close to training. Okay. So yeah, lots of nifs and buts there, but we definitely don't need to be, say if we train early in the morning and then we're having breakfast, that's quite a common one. We don't really need to be doing that because hopefully there's enough protein in breakfast to sort that out. Same again, even if we've eaten before. So say if we have dinner and then we go to the gym, we're still breaking down the protein and getting the amino acids from that protein whilst we're working out, and we're still in a really like nice synthesis state there. So we don't need to then have another hit of protein afterwards. And again, just some ideas. I can't remember if I've shared this before, but if we do need to grab something on the go quite quickly after a training session, if we've got a few hours till we're going to be eating a meal, then we probably do want sort of one carb, one protein element here just to stimulate that recovery. So that could be something like chocolate milk or some high protein yogurt. Might even be like a chicken wrap or something. And then maybe some easy carb options, banana, Lucozade, cereal bars, etc. So not so much to do with muscle development there, but I always feel like people get confused about what to have after workouts, basically.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, putting this into practice, I've kind of gone through this before when we talked about more of a fueling aspect. But the reason why I'm just showing it again is you'll see that even on a training day, we've got quite a bit of protein being drip fed into the body. So we've also got whey protein with our kind of smoothie in the morning. We've got a bit of protein yogurt in the mid morning potentially, or we might have that in the mid afternoon. The reason why we've got it in the mid morning in this one is because in that mid afternoon we're going to want to get more carbs in leading into that training. We've got prawns for lunch. We've got chicken for dinner. And then we've got some Greek yogurt and that casein protein that talks about that slow release in the evening as well. So if you're smart about it, you can, I think, pretty easily and comfortably achieve this. It just requires a little bit of planning, and then, as I say, once you get in the hang of it and the routine of it, then you'll probably find it's very, very easy and comfortable. Yeah, you're gonna have some days where it probably doesn't go right, but that's okay if you zoom out and think about across the week, are we hitting a lot of these protein opportunities? Then we probably are. Good. And then yeah, that's from a protein point of view, honestly, I think that's mainly it. There will be obviously more context to dependent questions on probably each individual, but we don't need to be getting confused with maybe, I don't know, hopefully that's clear, that the amount of protein that we need, maybe how often we need it. Do we need to be supplementing on protein? I think I've touched on it before, where it can be really useful as like a snack in between meals, or for fortifying things like a breakfast smoothie or breakfast pancakes or something, so we can add that in. We don't need to be having a protein shake every day. Yeah, it's kind of a clarity session, I guess, where hopefully that's cleared quite a lot of things up.
Yeah,
Yeah, any questions from the crowd?
any questions?
Yeah,
No, I think you've covered it all. Yeah, can't think of anything, I don't think. That you
nice.
haven't.
Yeah, good. And it sounds like you're not too far off it, to be fair. So this is probably more for others, but yeah, play around with it. Do the calculations so you can see actually sort of, okay, what does my 1.6 look like? What does my 2 grams look like? And again, you're going to have a bit of a range. Some days you might hit the lower end, some days you might hit the higher
Yeah,
end.
that's what I tend to do.
Yeah, and that's fine. Again, so you're not robots.
I
You
think
can't be nailing it.
they can run about 2 grams at least minimal a day at the moment. I'm trying to currently sort of build my way up back up to my maintenance, just purely from a point of view of just trying to help my gut and everything, focus on that. Ready to start, building again at the moment. It's just focusing on the food and quality of my food, and but yeah, I get plenty of lean protein.
Yeah,
I certainly hit my target. I mean, once I start to get a bit better, I will be able to sort of feed it throughout the day a bit more. Because yeah, I think it's more for me in the morning.
Try even
I train first thing in the morning, so I have. You told me about the whey isolate, which I've switched to, which is a lot better. Yeah, that's good. I can actually have that before I work out now. That doesn't sit on my stomach like the other one. So I have that before I train, and then I'll have breakfast normally within half an hour of coming home, about 7ish, and then I don't eat my lunch until about 12. So that's probably my longest time without anything.
Go for a little, even like a 20 gram, 15 gram little bump of protein and see how that goes.
Yeah.
Will it make a big difference? It's hard to say, really. I can't really give a fundamental answer, to be honest. But yeah, if you maybe start small, just see how that sits.
Yeah.
And then I don't think you need to be having a chicken breast there, for example, or a tin of tuna.
No.
Yeah.
Perhaps I have the lactose-free yogurt. I perhaps have some of that with maybe just half a scoop of protein or something. That might be enough, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're doing a lot of the right things, so I wouldn't worry too much.
No, brilliant.
Excellent. Well,
thanks, Ollie.
Yeah, no, very good. Yeah, obviously this session will be put somewhere, but